Less than 24 hours, Georgians will be under a shelter-in-place order.
McDonald, though, said he did not know the man was handcuffed and was trying to use his foot to pin him to the ground so he could be handcuffed.
If your friends, neighbors, or local organizations are not complying, report them to us.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome to the Free Georgia podcast. My name is Jake Green. Thank y'all for tuning in today. I've been off for 2 weeks. It's my bad. I should have banked some episodes, but I didn't. I was up in Montana building a house in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, basically working 12 to 16 hours every single day and didn't have the time to put a couple episodes together. So apologies for that. That's totally my fault. Today's episode is going to be about one topic that is actually super important this year, which is ballot access. We, as Libertarian Party of Georgia, face a pretty tremendous hurdle in that we have the possibility of losing our ballot access for basically any statewide election after this year. We'll get into why that is, but it is a very big deal. It hasn't happened in a very long time, but it could happen this year, depending on how many people we can rally to vote for the Libertarian Party. And considering how polarizing the two primary nominees are for each of the major parties, and the fact that there is a major independent running, only makes it even more difficult for us to accomplish this task. But I believe we can do it. We've done it before. We've done it every year since I think like 1988, I believe. So I think we can do it. So let's start talking about what we have to do, or let's talk about what ballot access is before we do anything else. All right. Sorry, I did not have my screens set up properly. All right. What is ballot access? So I'm going to read straight from this website. Okay. This is a website that some of our members have created. It's called freedomindeed.com. You can go there. You can learn all about ballot access and why we need it, and what has happened in the past, and just basically everything about ballot access. So what is ballot access? When we speak of ballot access, we're referring to the laws or statutes that determine the rules one must meet to have a candidate's name printed on the ballot that a voter sees when they're voting at a polling place. I guarantee you so many people don't think about this. They don't think about what it actually takes to get on the ballot. You would think in a democracy where the people are supposed to be able to choose who represents them, I guess a representative democracy, you would think that pretty much anyone would just be able to go get on the ballot and run a campaign and be in the race and be an option for their fellow citizens to elect. That is not at all the case. Continuing with this website, it says these sort of laws exist in every state and are different in each state. Here in Georgia, our ballot access laws separate the elections into the statewide elections, those where every voter in Georgia can participate, and districted races, those such as U.S. House and Georgia General Assembly, where only voters in a specified area participate. Additionally, the laws specify different rules determined by your association designated as political party, political body, and independent. The Libertarian Party of Georgia is a political body. For a political body, the rules for statewide elections specify that any statewide candidate can qualify for ballot if they meet one of two criteria. If the political body in the current year secures a nominating petition of 1% of the registered voters, they can qualify for the ballot. Or if the political body ran a statewide candidate in the previous general election that earned a vote total equal to 1% of the registered voters in that election. The Libertarian Party of Georgia first earned statewide ballot access by nominating petition in 1988. There we go. And has retained that ballot access through earned votes every general election since. To lose our ballot access would mean we would have to do a nominating petition of about 80,000 signatures for each statewide candidate we wanted to place on the ballot. So yes, actually, let's look that up. So for a statewide race, what is the population of the state of Georgia? Just to get a better number. The population is 3.7 million. Is that right? That doesn't seem correct. Apologies. Let's see. It seems low, doesn't it? Seems like there are way more people here than that. That could just be me. Let's see. Population. There we go. 11 million. So 11 million. 11 million times 0.01, 110,000. Secures nominating. Let's see. For political body, the rules for statewide elections specify that if they meet one of two criteria, if the political body in the current year secures a nominating petition of 1% of registered voters. Okay, so it's registered voter, not total population. So registered voters would be far fewer than the 110,000 that we would need to get if it was total people. But it's still a massive number. It's in the millions. And one of the crazy things about it is these signatures are then they then have to be verified by people who are in the government, which is made up mainly of Democrats and Republicans. And so they will disqualify signatures left and right, which basically means you need double the amount of signatures, generally speaking, in order to have enough actual signatures by the end of the nominating petition time frame, which is a massive disadvantage, clearly. I'm going to show you a clip here in a little while. It's going to explain this in very simple, easy to understand terms. All right, back to the article. Let's see. Ballot access for the districted elections is different. For a political body to place a candidate on the ballot in a districted election requires a nominating petition of 5% of the registered voters in that district. These petitions can be as small as about 100 for a partisan school board seat and as high as 25,000 signatures for U.S. House seat. The Georgia U.S. House petitioning requirements are reputed to be some of the most difficult in the nation, and in fact have never been accomplished by any candidate since these laws were passed in 1943. It's crazy. This one fact should lead you to question whether or not the state actually represents our interests. This one law should make you question everything about democracy and a democratic republic, because if those in power that we elect, let's say back in 1850, we elected somebody who then decided, yeah, I'm going to put laws in place so that an entire swath of people, it will be extremely difficult for their opinions, their values, their thoughts to be represented in Congress and the Senate and president, governor, what have you. That while that person was elected democratically and the law may have passed by the representatives of that democracy, in no way, shape, or form is that how democracy was designed to work. But that's exactly what has happened. They've hijacked the value of your vote. They've hijacked I don't know how to say it any better than that. They've hijacked the value of your vote. Your vote, while you may be voting for the LP in the next election, it's less so about the candidate and more about just trying to keep the Libertarian Party or any third party on the ballot, able to, be put on the ballot. So it's blatant travesty against democracy. It should never have been in place, but it is, and this is where we are. So let's go to the home page. This is the homepage of this website. Again, freedomindeed.com. A critical call to action for libertarians in Georgia. Will there be a libertarian candidate for Georgia governor in 2026? Since 1988, when the Libertarian Party first earned its statewide ballot access in Georgia, there have been 82 libertarian candidates for statewide offices. This includes the first woman candidate for Georgia governor, Carol Ann Rand, in 1990, and many others who would never have been able to be a candidate were it not for our access to the ballot for these statewide offices. Our ballot access is never guaranteed. Every general election, we must earn it again by surpassing a threshold of votes for any statewide candidate. For 18 elections in a row, we have done exactly that. The year 2024 will be the 19th general election where we must earn our ballot access, and we are faced with the most difficult situation in our history. Due to a complex series of legal decisions, we'll get to that in a minute, we are faced with the most difficult situation we've ever confronted. This year, we will have only the presidential race as our sole means to earn our ballot access. It doesn't get any more uncertain or harder. We are in uncharted waters now. There's only one path forward. We must find all those in Georgia who describe themselves as libertarian and encourage them to vote LP in the November 5th general election. Nothing is certain or easy, but this is within our reach. We're going to have to do our honest best and rise to the challenge. So yes, there have been some squirrely things happening in the state of Georgia for the past few years. Okay, let's go over here and look at this LP election history. Okay, so this shows all the elections. So public service commissioner, U.S. president, U.S. Senate, governor, lieutenant governor, all of these. Generally speaking, what has always earned us the ballot access, statewide ballot access, is the PSC election. As you can see, we've done surprisingly well in a bunch of these elections. We got 18% in 1990. We got 33% in 2008, 34% in 2012, 2014, 2016, 30%, 33%. We've done well in these public service commissioner races. But in 2022 and 2024, they canceled the election. Okay, so they canceled the elections that we... Okay, first of all, canceling an election in a democracy, I feel like makes it not a democracy anymore. More proof that we, in no way, shape, or form, live in a democracy. But they canceled public service commissioner 2, 5, and 3 races over the past 3 years, all of which we had somebody running. We had Colin McKinney running in 2022. We had Tom Blooming in 2024 and Victoria Salvia in 2024 running for public service commissioner of their respective districts. These, by getting a certain percentage in these races, it allowed us to get on the ballot the following election every single time that we were able to accomplish that goal, which is an impossibility at this point since they canceled the election. Again, it said it's complex legal decisions. It's an understatement. It's extremely confusing and concerning how this happened. I might try to do an entire episode just based on that, just talking about those legal decisions, because they're it's dense. It's a lot go over. So we might do that in a separate episode. But the mere fact that they're canceling elections in the state of Georgia should lead you to question your state, question your government, question who is in charge and why are they canceling these races? Because in no way, shape, or form is that how it is supposed to work in the system that has been set up by previous generations. So that's something to keep in mind. There's another tab. What has happened? All right. This kind of goes into the court stuff a little bit. On July 14th, 2020, a complaint was filed in the U.S. District Court, Northern District of Georgia. 4 African-American voters in Fulton County, Georgia, sued the Georgia Secretary of State for violating the Voting Rights Act, claiming that the way Georgia conducts its elections for Public Service Commissioner disadvantages Black voters. You can read the complaint here. Please take a few moments to read this complaint. It is only 11 pages and not difficult to read. Again, go to this website and you can read it. On August 5th, 2022, the above-mentioned court found for the plaintiffs and enjoined the Secretary of State from including Public Service Commissioner elections on the ballot. This canceled the Public Commissioner District 2 election that was scheduled for 2022. You can read the complete decision here. The effect this would have on our ability to earn ballot access in the 2024 elections was immediately clear. Being a presidential election year would normally include Public Service Commissioner elections. Canceling the PSC elections leaves us with only the presidential election to earn ballot access. The LP of Georgia has met the vote threshold for our ballot access in only one presidential election, Gary Johnson in 2016. And might I remind you, that was Gary Johnson's second time running on the Libertarian ticket for president. He had done so in 2012 as well. And so he already had that name recognition, which means we face a pretty tall task at this point. The situation changed on November 23rd, 2023, when the decision to enjoin was reversed on appeal by the U.S. Court of Appeals 11th District. This decision restored the PSC elections to their former status, and it appeared that the PSC would be on the 2024 ballot, a decision favorable to our ballot access. You can view the appellate court's decision here. Believing that there would be PSC elections in 2024, the LP of Georgia nominated 2 PSC candidates at our state convention on January 25th, 2024. On February 1st, a week later, we began to get the news that the Secretary of State was not qualifying the PSC elections. This was highly unusual and raised many questions. Over the next few days, we learned that the appellate court's decision to reverse was being held up due to some legal moves that are currently opaque to us. We are compelled to infer that the 2 scheduled PSC elections will be canceled for the 2024 general election. We must earn our ballot access this year in the presidential race. So there you go. A lot of stuff that we have no control over. A lot of stuff happening behind closed doors with idiotic reasoning. It's a travesty. It's not at all surprising. It's not at all surprising that the government is choosing to listen to somebody complain about discrimination and then proceeding to cancel elections and calling that some type of justice. It's idiotic. It's just idiotic that the state of Georgia is doing this. And it makes our task extremely difficult, a task that was already difficult. This is a wild election year. We haven't had a third party or third person like candidate, independent candidate since Ross Perot that has been this notable. I guess Kanye ran last election, but he ran last minute and I think got on the ballot in like 6 states. So it looks like Kennedy will likely be on the ballot in most states. So it's going to be a wild year. It's going to be very difficult. It's a tall task. But we've got a lot of really determined people and I believe we can do it. Just with the governor campaign alone in 2022 with Shane Hazel, I was able to, just me personally, I was able to change people's minds who had voted a specific way their entire life, decided to change how they were going to vote and voted for Shane Hazel over Brian Kemp and over Stacey Abrams. So it can be done. It just takes a lot of work, a lot of time. People don't like Trump. People don't like Biden. Mainly these days, people are voting out of hatred or fear of what the other party will do. And so I think we can harness that. And I think we can, convince some folks to come over to the side of freedom and liberty. So, yeah, before we get out of here, I'm going to share with you a clip from my movie, Divide and Dominate. This is Spike Cohen talking about ballot access.
This is Spike Cohen. You might have recognized him as the vice presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party in 2020. Let's see what he's got to say about something called ballot access.
State to state. But what happened is coming out of the Civil War era, so going into the 1870s, 1880s, we start to see where the Republicans and Democrats realize that there's one thing they will always agree on, that only they should be running for office. And so we start seeing the beginnings of ballot access laws. And interestingly enough, in the South, a lot of the ballot access laws were originally intended to keep black people off the ballot. It's one of the last vestiges of the Jim Crow era that has been allowed to remain, is the ballot access laws that were passed during that time. But anyway, it happened across the country, and it kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And even now, they're still continuing to add more and more restrictions. And we'll see something like, I'm not as sure how it is in Georgia, but for example, in Tennessee, if you want to be a Republican or Democrat and run for office, you have to get 25 signatures. Just to show you're serious, right? If you can't get 25 people to sign something saying, yes, I'd like this person to be on the ballot, that should be enough of a disqualifier. That way there's not a bunch of trouble. Fair enough. If you want to run as anything other than a Republican or Democrat, you have to get 56,000 signatures. It's 2,000 times. And also the court that validates those signatures is run by Republicans and Democrats. So really you have to get about 100,000 signatures, which works out to, I think, 6% of the electorate.
So there you go. There you go, y'all. I mean, that's the challenge that we face. It's insane that we have to get signatures to get on a ballot. It makes no sense. And I'm sure to people who have not worked on a campaign before, saying, you got to get this many signatures, you got to get that many. Well, just go get them. Just go get the signatures. Well, I don't think you understand how difficult that is. First of all, it takes a ton of time, like a extraordinary amount of time. Let's say that we needed to get that 80 to 100,000 signatures to get on a ballot. Okay. You need hundreds of people going around door to door in parking lots, wherever, trying to get people to, first of all, take their headphones out of their ears and listen to you talk, not assume that you're pitching them something to sell, assume that you're not wasting their time. So you have to go through all those people. You're going to get maybe 1 out of 10 to actually talk to you. And then out of those that you actually get to talk to you, maybe 1 out of every 20 will actually sign the dadgum thing. And so you either have to get a ton of volunteers who will voluntarily do this for no pay, which is not a fun job. Been there, done that, hate it. Or you have to come up with a boatload of money to pay these people to do this job. And since the Libertarian Party of Georgia is a small party at this moment, and the Libertarian Party in general, we don't have the funds to be paying hundreds of workers to go around and try to collect signatures on one specific race. It's difficult. So that's the challenge we face. But like I said, people are tending to vote these days out of hatred for the other, and I think that makes it, fear is pretty compelling. But convincing people to not live in fear, well, first of all, that's great for them. That's much better way to live, not in fear. Second of all, I think it's possible to convince people to not live in fear. I think it's more possible to do that than it is to convince them to not vote for somebody they love. Yeah. So I think we do have a chance to do this, and yeah, maybe I'll do another episode on it later on in the year before the elections, and maybe we can get a few folks on here to talk about ballot access and, a campaign, or, what all they've worked on as far as gaining signatures and these kinds of situations. So that'll do it for today, everybody. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. If you're wondering where Liberty Libations went, because it's not popping up on Libertarian Party of Georgia channels anymore, we're over on Peaceful Sea channels now. So we're over on, you can go follow us on Twitter, Liberty Libation, Instagram, Liberty Libations. We're on our primary sources, Rumble. You can search Liberty Libations. You will find us. We're also still on YouTube. We just disaffiliated, whatever it is, from the Libertarian Party of Georgia. It was kind of a joint venture for a while, and it just didn't feel like the best place to be was with the political party for that show. We get into things that aren't at all supported by the Libertarian Party, so I didn't want to tarnish the name of the LP. And I wanted freedom to be able to do a little more with the show than what the LP could have granted me. So yeah, that's it. That's it for today, y'all. Really appreciate it. Go follow us at LP Georgia on Twitter, and you can go to lpgeorgia.com to learn more about the party. We'll see you next week for another episode of the Free Georgia Podcast. Peace.